Anybody still need to take the quiz from last week? Chapter 2 quiz. I'd like to take it right now. So you see one more note there that you have a test on Wednesday. I did grade your quizzes from last week. I put them in the focus. They were really good. The averages were pretty good. So I'm thinking your test next week is gonna be should be pretty good. It should be better than our first test, I think. Thursday? So everything on the quiz, you guys did pretty well on. What we've done since then is piecewise functions, which are pretty challenging. And we've done these, which I hope after this you're gonna feel like you can really do them pretty well. And then I'm gonna add just a little bit to this today, just some shading, and then that's everything the test is on, which is gonna be next Wednesday. Okay, so what you need to have memorized is the model for absolute value equations. So if you don't have this memorized yet, you might want to put it on an index card or just like make it the background of your phone. Look at it, memorize it, maybe label it, so that you really have to have that down. So if I wanted to identify the vertex, which letters here show the vertex? H and K as an ordered pair give the vertex of your absolute value function, that center point. So number one, what's our vertex of this f of x function? Did I hear? 4 and -2. So some of y'all just still need to make a note that the value in the h spot is in the h spot, disregarding that subtraction sign. So that's a 4 there, not a -4. Make a note of that. So this is our vertex. So if we had to create a graph, we would start with a center point right here. So that's a good jumping off point for graphing your absolute value. So for number 2, I'm looking for 3 transformations. Identify 3 transformations, so using the vocabulary. Can anybody tell me what the 3 in the front does to the graph? And these are all transformations as compared to this one. Mark, tell me the 3. Okay, yeah. This number in front is always your slope. The branches can be up 3/1. So if it's up 3/1 instead of up 1/1, how would you describe the change? How would it look different? Skinnier? So what's the vocab word I said for skinnier? Narrow. There's a different one actually. Alec, were you going to say that? Tell him. Stretch is the word I want. Stretch is the points. You got to say stretch to get the points. Right. It depends which way you're stretching it. Are we stretching it this way or are we stretching it this way? So for that reason, we call it a vertical stretch. It's a vertical stretch because we're stretching it up by 3, exactly a factor of 3. So I am going to include that word vertical, stretch, and the real technical word is to say by a factor of 3. Yes. So for our purposes here, we're going to call everything a vertical stretch or compression. But so you know, mathematicians, they do talk about horizontal compressions and horizontal stretches, and those look just opposite of the vertical. So there is such thing as a horizontal stretch, but we're not describing that here with absolute value functions. Okay, what's another transformation? What does the presence of the 4 do to the graph? Somebody else. Izzy. horizontal translation. So you can remember that because it's an H. Horizontal translation of 4. So on your 100-point test Wednesday, I promise you these 4 things are going to be on it. So if you want to take a picture of it, you can like, oh yeah, be sure to show you this. Or just, highlight this bell where these 4 things will be on it in some representation. Okay, so what does the -2 at the end, how does that affect the graph, Aubrey? -2. So these are the exact vocab words I need for full credit. I want translation instead of a shift or slide. I want the word translation. And I want stretch instead of narrow or skinny. Okay, questions on number 2? All right, number 3 is to actually make the graph. So so start with this one. I will ask you on your test to make this one and to compare to this one. So I want you to have this memorized. You should know what just y equals absolute value of x looks like. Just know it. So that you should just know until you finish education in math. You should just know this. Starts at 0, 0 and goes up 1 over 1. So make it. And then make this new one with these transformations. So if I walk around and I say one's made the parent function, I'll start making the new function. Technical with you is not exactly based on the picture. If I was just showing you a picture and not equation, vertical stretch and horizontal compression. You've got your V in the middle. Starts at 0, 0, goes up 1 over 1. Okay, so to make my new V, I'll start at this vertex I've already identified for -2. And then where do I go from there? Grace, no? Up 3 over 1. There it is. Hope no one turns this in on the test. It's a full V, right? So follow that same slope, just in the opposite direction. And there's your graph. Alright, last question. Full review from yesterday and the day before. Domain and range. Brian C. Do you know domain? Domain? It is, domain is the same for all of these V shapes. Even when it's narrow, the V's, the domain's always the same. It's always all real numbers. So I will ask you domain and range for this V shape. It's always this for domain. It's always all real numbers. And the range. Greater than or equal to -2. So whatever the k value is the range. And if the arrows go up, it's y greater. If the arrows go down, it's y less than. Okay. Let me just see your homework. We'll show the answer to that. And then we're gonna do just like a short note, and then I'll pass back your quizzes from last week.
18,
Alright, there's 18 and 19. They were definitely the more difficult of the 4 problems.
You want to do both homeworks today and then bring it to next?
Sure. Great. Look at 19. For sure, get the horizontal line correct. So when you look at the picture, I have it projected. The blue line that's going straight to the left, for sure. I'm gonna figure out which part, what I wrote for that one.
No, you're starting with lift it up.
Oh, yeah, I got that one, right? Oh, 19. 19. But I got the inequality, right? Yeah, you Got got 6 again. You got 6 instead of 2x, and you got 6 Well, instead of 2 x's. and you got 6. You got -1 instead of 2x. 19's all wacky. So, but I got the correct inequalities for all of them. All of them are having inequalities. It's just the y's that are. Right? So I didn't.
Did you check it? Is everything checking out up there?
Yeah, I solved the inequalities, so I just put this to it.
Do you got the graphs?
No, I didn't.
You just did 18 and 19?
Robot.
Yeah, I think you're mistake. I think you're right.
Did you get a picture of her?
I got it.
Yeah. She did. She worked on it.
No, you were on 5 languages.
Was it? I thought I had
No, I did not.
That's my favorite one.
I don't want to.
Oh, it's a chicken.
You need drive-through? I don't talk to you. Go ahead. That's the animal. Yes, you know.
Maybe she did put it in there, just didn't change my grade. Check again.
Like a 70 something.
She said, yeah, and when I put it, she was like, if you don't get the extra credit,
You
then I
guys,
put it in.
anybody that did checks?
I have always in one day, Gracie.
That's city journey. Oh, and that's me. This is good enough. No, I'm good.
If you want to give take a look at these notes, I would write this down. I would write this down. I would.
Shoot.
That's one thing. Everyone, the entire class. I didn't.
I had fought algae first 5 years ago. Fair? No.
I do.
Are you talking about the package?
I literally do your math for you. Yeah. I know, we were talking the entire time. You wouldn't stop talking to me. You're like 2 minutes left in class and trying to do the house. But if you're absent like one day, she excuse all your assignments. Something like that.
Today is
She changes the subject so much.
we're gonna take exactly this equation. We're gonna everything we just reviewed exactly like it is, but instead of an equal sign, we're gonna have an inequality symbol. So all that means is if we have a symbol here instead of an equal sign, you're going to do a dash line if it's this greater than symbol or less than symbol. gives you a solid line if it's one of these. And then there's shading. So you might remember shading from Algebra 1. You can shade linear inequalities, or you could really shade any function if there's an inequality symbol. So looking at the y-intercept, you'll shade up for the greater than signs, and you'll shade down for the less than signs. So exactly graphing just like yesterday, but there'll be like coloring in involved. So it's very likely on your test Wednesday that you will be graphing an inequality. It kind of forces you to know all of the information.
It kind of forces it, all the information, or
Like if I'm trying to make sure that you have enough time to finish a test, I wouldn't give you like like 3 graphs to create and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm going to condense a lot of different ideas into one graph. So your graph is probably going to be an inequality. And that'll show me like, do you understand how to see a vertex? Do you know the transformations? Should it go up or down? And can you shade correctly? So Baden, what do you think the vertex is of this line? Let's say it wasn't an inequality. Let's just say it looks like this. So you're comparing it to this model. So I just told you during bell work that your vertex comes from the numbers in these spots. So what's the vertex of that one? That's one of them. Do you think that's going to be the x or the y of the vertex? The y. What do you think the x value is? What's in there in the brackets? Anything? So since there's no number, it's a 0. If I can't see anything, there's a 0 there, and mathematicians didn't bother to write it. So here's our vertex. You should see this, and when you see this equation, you should picture that v just moved 4 units down, right? That's a vertical translation of -4. So go ahead and graph it. Draw a picture. So you're going to draw a vertex at 0, -4. What's the slope of this line? What are the branches going to have? Mark, go ahead. Yeah, the slope's 1/1. We don't have anything there in the A spot other than the invisible 1. So you start at the vertex, you go slope 1/1 in both directions. And you have your graph. Go ahead and put that parent function on there too, I guess. Good practice. Mine's not perfect, but that's what it should look like. So, if this was just an equation, this would be my picture. Though it's not an equation, it's an inequality. So when I take the equal sign, and it becomes this symbol, I'm going to think, well, should my line actually be dashed? And I have this to refer to. It says dashed line for greater than or less than, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to make sure my line is actually dashed. If you think about it before you connect your points, that's ideal. So you're not having to erase it to make it appear dashed. So we have to dash a line for an inequality, and then we have to shade. So since this is greater than, it says shade up from the y-intercept for y greater than. So I'm just gonna put my pencil around the y-intercept and shade up. So the entire inside of this V is shaded. And what that means is any point inside this shading, any x, y coordinate pair, when I put the x here and the y here, it'll come out true. The left side, the right side will be less than the right side. So the only new thing that you're practicing in your assignment today over the weekend is to dash your line if necessary and to shade either inside or outside the V shape. Okay, so are there questions? I'm going to pass out your quiz. Please do corrections on your quiz in red pen. I am going to put the correct answers up, but you should ask questions. Each question